Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here in the channel, we're going to be talking about 1993's Philadelphia and its 2018 4K Blu-ray. So Philadelphia is actually my favorite Tom Hanks film of all time, and Tom Hanks is my favorite actor of all time. So it's pretty strange that Philadelphia is my favorite film from him, but I actually kind of have a personal connection to this movie, and I also think it's a very, very, very important movie. Tom Hanks actually won one of two back-to-back Academy Awards. He won this in 93, and then he won for 1994's Forrest Gump. Well deserved for both. Not many actors can win back-to-back Academy Awards, and that's actually his only two Best Actor awards. And he deserved them both. I think he gives the better performance here in Philadelphia, and I feel like Philadelphia is probably the more forgotten about film. It was a very important film back in the early 1990s. One of the first films to be talking about the AIDS pandemic, and one of the first films to really be tackling homophobia out in the forefront. And this one was directed by Jonathan Demme, just coming off of Silence of the Lambs, where that film swept the Academy Awards, one of the most popular films ever. The Silence of the Lambs falls into the top 10 films for me ever made, and he followed it up with Philadelphia, which I think is just as good of a film, but it doesn't quite hit the highs of The Silence of the Lambs, even though it has some fantastic performances in it. And it's also using the same cinematographer, Tak Fujimoto, who actually shot 1988's Married to the Mob, and also shot The Silence of the Lambs. So him and Jonathan Demme have a great working relationship, and Jonathan Demme has this certain look to his movies. Even if you go back to the concert film, Stop Making Sense, he loves to get the camera as close to the actor as possible, get the camera right in their face so they're looking right into the camera, so it feels like we're looking right into their face. He did this a lot in The Silence of the Lambs, and he turned it up to 10 in this movie. So we're really looking at Denzel Washington, we're really looking at Tom Hanks, and we're getting the camera as close to their face as possible, really letting them portray the emotion to us. And this movie is following around Andrew Beckett, a lawyer living in Philadelphia, a really successful and good lawyer, but unfortunately we know he has AIDS, and he's probably going to die throughout the course of this film. And then he gets unfairly fired from his job.
Am I being fired?
Let me put it this way, Andy. Your place in the future of this firm is no longer secure.
They trusted him with a really important case, the Highline case, and then at the very last minute, they couldn't find the forms, and if they had to be submitted at a certain time, or they actually end up losing out on this case because of statutes of limitations. So they really have to get this in. They're under the gun. They get it in at the last minute, but they still decide, you know what, even though we love you, we gotta fire you. And he believes that the reason why they fired him is because he has AIDS. So he starts looking for a lawyer. He goes to 9 other lawyers before he finally ends up at what seems like an ambulance chaser type lawyer played by Denzel Washington, who's got all these fancy commercials. You know, he's kind of a small-time star in the Philadelphia area. This movie really does lean into Philadelphia. They shot it in Philadelphia, and Jonathan Demme just captures that Northeast look. He's a Long Island boy like myself. So for people who might not live in the Northeast area, it snows here a lot. It's cold. It's messy throughout the entire winter. I know a lot of people, when they see snow on the big screen, they probably think, oh, it's such a beautiful thing. It is for like the first day, and then for the rest of the months after it, it's just a mess. It's disgusting. You know, it feels cold and dirty, and I really feel like they captured that look here in this movie. A lot of this movie, it takes place, and it's overcasted throughout the entire film, but I just think that actually is beautiful. I think they captured that look so amazingly, and I think that only Jonathan Demme and his cinematographer, Tak Fujimoto, could actually capture that look. And then, of course, they capture the emotion of this movie. As it's going on, we really learn about Tom Hanks' relationship with not only his family, but with Antonio Banderas, giving a great performance in this movie. Probably back in 1993, not many people knew who he was. He plays Tom Hanks' partner in this movie, and you care about their relationship. You could just see how much his family adores Andrew Beckett, how much they absolutely love him. And then at the end of his life, they're putting him through this big-time court case where, you know, they're basically laying out his entire life for the world, and at the same time, he's dying of AIDS, and he's just trying to make people feel more compassionate for these people. Denzel Washington's character in this movie, he is a homophobe. He didn't really want to take this case because, A, he was afraid that he was going to get AIDS. He didn't really understand how it could be transferred, which is what a lot of people thought back in the 1980s and early 1990s. They were still very confused about how it could be transferred, and Denzel Washington's character is no different. He was very concerned. Once Andrew Beckett shakes his hand, he goes to his doctor to see what the hell could happen to him. And, you know, he's a homophobe at that. He has a problem with gay people. And as the movie goes on, he has to learn to appreciate Tom Hanks and appreciate other gay people and really have an understanding of how they live their lives and what they are scrutinized for on a daily basis that he himself doesn't have to deal with. And, you know, they end up building a pretty solid friendship. Although the one scene in this movie that I absolutely do hate is the opera scene. Maybe it's just because I don't like opera, but I just feel like that scene is very out of place and it just doesn't really fit in the rest of the movie, at least as far as tonally. It just feels like it's very out of place, and me personally, I would have cut that. And if you were really trying to illustrate to us Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks' friendship, I think there was a better way to do it than in that opera scene. But it's no big deal. It's still a fantastic film. It builds up to a great and very, very, very sad conclusion. I mean, it makes me cry every single time. I mean, you knew it was coming too, but it still breaks your heart watching this every single time. And this was actually a pretty successful movie when it came out. It didn't sweep the Oscars like Silence of the Lambs, but Tom Hanks did win his first Academy Award for Best Actor, and also Streets of Philadelphia by Bruce Springsteen, who was one of my favorite artists of all time, won Best Original Score.
I was bruised and battered, I couldn't tell what I felt. I was.
That song opens up this movie so well. Some of the best opening credits as they're, just driving throughout Philadelphia, looking at the city, really letting you appreciate the city, and that song just matches it up perfectly. And this really was the start of the Tom Hanks run. I guess it started in late 1992 with A League of Their Own, but then he had this and Sleepless in Seattle in 1993, Forrest Gump in 94, Apollo 13 and Toy Story in 1995, That Thing You Do, which he also co-wrote and directed in 1996. He had Saving Private Ryan, Toy Story 2, and then even coming into the 2000s, he had Castaway, and 2002 he had Catch Me If You Can. So from 1992 to 2002, Tom Hanks just could not be stopped. He was the best actor in the world. Any movie he was in, it was a hit. It could not miss. He was just on top of the world. Since that point in 2002, he's kind of more hit or miss, but he's still one of the greatest actors ever. And Philadelphia, I think, is his best performance that he's ever given. It is my favorite Tom Hanks film, and it's one that I think you should definitely check out if by chance you haven't seen it. Not only is it a great film, but it's a very, very, very important film. Maybe not as important as it was in 1993, but I still think it's one of those films that you absolutely have to see. And now let's talk about this 4K Blu-ray from Sony.
How many lawyers you go to before you call me?
9.
So here it is. This was actually celebrating its 25th anniversary back in 2018, and it just celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2023. And I thought maybe we would get this with Dolby Vision on it for its 30th anniversary, maybe release it in a steelbook like Schindler's List did for its 30th anniversary, maybe just update it a little bit. But then when I put the 4K Blu-ray in and it just has HDR10, you know what? It doesn't need an upgrade. The visuals on this are actually a 10 out of 10. I don't know why this 4K Blu-ray doesn't get talked about more than it should, because it really is one of those standout visual 4Ks. And that really shouldn't be no surprise. It is a TriStar release film, which means Sony owns it now. And Sony, even back in 2018, were still putting out the best 4K Blu-rays. They really had the technology on lock back then. They were just putting out way better 4Ks than everybody else. I mean, this was really early in me collecting 4K Blu-rays. The format really kind of got started in 2016, but by 2018 we were starting to get more and more films on 4K, but it really didn't hit its stride yet, so they were kind of just seeping out. And this still does feel like an early 4K Blu-ray. This would fit in with a 2023-2024 release on 4K. It really gave us all the bells and whistles. It was originally released with a slipcover. I don't have the slipcover, unfortunately, because I didn't get it on its initial release. I actually didn't get this until, I believe, 2020, because I had the previously released Blu-ray and I was happy with it. And honestly, because it was released in 2018, I was very skeptical. I really didn't think it was going to be that much of an upgrade over the Blu-ray that I had, and I was way wrong on that one, because the visual jump is just absolutely incredible. Before I go into those, I just want to show you guys, it is a 2-disc set. You get a Blu-ray and a 4K Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray that's packed in here is going to have all of your extras on it. It's actually a pretty good scan. It's just not a great scan when you compare it to the 4K Blu-ray. The 4K Blu-ray is so much brighter, and that's because of the HDR10. And you probably never noticed the architecture throughout the film until you actually put this 4K Blu-ray in. I mean, where he's working, he obviously works at a law firm, so they have a lot of money, because the walls all look beautiful. They're like a green and gray, and it never stood out to me until this 4K Blu-ray. I mean, all the architecture throughout Philadelphia now stands out. The colors in this movie, they didn't really pop on the previously released Blu-ray, mainly because, like I said, the movie itself, it was shot in Philadelphia. It's got a lot of overcasty shots, a lot of browns and grays throughout the entire film. Anytime there's really any color, like in the library scene, those green lights, which I always want to go to a library with those green lights. It always looks so awesome to me. I don't know if that's a Philadelphia thing or not. I've seen it in other movies like The Mask or Seven, which I think is actually the same library, but now that stuff just kind of pops off the screen. Maybe you're noticing the colors now on Denzel Washington's suit when he's wearing that scarf. Andrew Beckett is wearing a scarf where he's wearing that Philadelphia Phillies hat. And actually, I have to bring this up, the makeup in this movie. They really wanted to kind of age Andrew Beckett quick because he's dying of AIDS, so he's looking really sick. And at one point in the movie, the first time we see Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks, interact after he's been fired when he goes to ask Denzel Washington for his services of being his counselor. He makes a comment, a lot of other people make comments about how bad Tom Hanks looks in this, but when he puts the Philadelphia Phillies hat on, he's got that beard. I don't think he looks bad at all. In fact, most people walking around the streets in 2024 just love that genuine look of wearing a baseball hat with a beard. I mean, it's pretty much my distinct look. I don't think he looks that sick, and that's, obviously as they go on, he looks sicker and sicker, but the makeup hasn't really held up that well, and when you watch it on 4K, it's even more noticeable that the makeup isn't that great, because again, we do a lot of close-ups. Jonathan Demme loves his close-ups, so now everything looks more natural and more realistic, and I don't know if it did that makeup any favors, and that's not a fault of the disc. The disc itself, like I'm saying, you can notice all the materials, all the reflections now, everything on their clothes is more noticeable. You'll notice their hair a little bit more. I mean, again, colors that just never popped off the screen before now pop off the screen with this 4K Blu-ray. I mean, it's incredible. For a film like this, one of my favorite films ever, this 4K Blu-ray really is not appreciated enough for its visuals. Now, the audio, you do get a Dolby Atmos track, and I think this kind of suffers a little bit from it being released in 2018 because, A, it probably wasn't necessary. This is a dialogue-heavy movie. Yes, it's got a great score, but the only time you really notice the Atmos track doing a lot of work is in the beginning of the movie with Streets of Philadelphia by Bruce Springsteen playing, and, then you feel the bass a little bit, and you really feel that it's mixed very well, and then throughout the rest of the film, it's a good Atmos track. It's just the fact that, it's a dialogue-heavy movie, and you just really want that stuff to come in crisp and clear, but it's not making the best use of all your channels because it's not that type of film. I don't think it's the fault of the Atmos track, but it's really hard to distinguish if this Atmos track is that good or that bad, mainly because we're just really sitting here, and it's a courtroom kind of film, and we're there to really listen to the dialogue, and you just hope that the dialogue is crisp and clear and that the score doesn't overwhelm it at points, and none of that happens, so I still have to say it's a good Atmos track, but it's nothing that's going to blow you away. It's something that you might not even really notice is an Atmos track, mainly because of the type of film that this is. And it's really no fault of its own, that's just the way it is for this type of movie. And then all those extras, which are on your Blu-ray disc, are fantastic. I mean, this is when they used to give us every single extra. There's a great 25th anniversary Coca-Cola featurette on here, and you're probably wondering, what the hell is that? But it really interviews all the big-time actors that appear in this movie, looking back on the movie, the importance of this movie from 1993. Thought that was really cool. There's an hour-long making-of documentary, which I absolutely love. Not too sure when that was made. I mean, I've seen it before, but I think it was made for its 20th anniversary. I could be wrong on that because everybody looks a little bit younger than they do now, especially Tom Hanks. He's got no gray in his hair in his interviews. I'm not too sure when that was made, but it's a great making-of documentary. There's another on-set making-of featurette from 1992, which is awesome. I love seeing that. There's also another documentary that was made looking back in 1992 of people who actually had AIDS and their stories and what they were going through at the time. Thought that was really nice. Didn't watch the whole thing, but I'm really glad that was on there. Some other little featurettes, trailers. So they really gave us a ton of extras on here, on top of it being a huge visual upgrade and great audio. The packaging itself, I'm sure it was nice with the slipcover, but I would have liked a little bit more. I know that Philadelphia isn't one of the most popular films ever made. Maybe it was a little bit more popular back in 1993, but I'm sure in 2024, many people wouldn't consider this movie a classic. I consider it a classic mainly because I absolutely love this film. I watch it every single year. It makes me cry every single year. I think it's a very important film, and it just brings me such joy to tell you guys that the 4K Blu-ray is fantastic. If you haven't grabbed it yet, I can highly recommend it, but even if you can't grab this 4K Blu-ray, I could definitely say, check this film out. I think it's an important film, and I think it's one you will enjoy. And I think you'll appreciate all the performances that are in this film as well. But how would I rate this 4K Blu-ray out of score of 1 to 10? I'm going to give the Philadelphia 4K Blu-ray a pretty damn solid 9 out of 10. And that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. If you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, share this video, turn notifications on, or you can become a channel member like my 3 producers, John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Nocturnal. Or you can even become a channel director like Kevin Kruger and Frank Rodriguez, and you get your own individual review every single month. You could also have access to a private chat with me, or you could even become a friend of the channel. That also supports us, and we appreciate everybody who's under that tier. But if you got no money to throw our way, don't you guys worry about it. We just appreciate you checking out the video and just pass along what Let's Talk Entertainment Media is doing. And then after you guys are done doing all that, I just want you guys to get out in those streets and enjoy the rest of your day. And then we'll be seeing you around.